Welcome to the channel, my review of Codex World Eaters as ever. Thank you to Games Workshop for sending this through to me, and as ever, to everyone else out there. This isn't a full breakdown of every single rule inside this codex. This is more an overview to give you a flavour of what's inside, whether it is any good or not. And I can say from the off, it's very good. In my opinion, in my humble opinion, this last codex of 9th edition is the best codex of 9th edition Warhammer 40k. Within an hour of reading it, I had a pretty good understanding of World Eaters and what they did and the rules and how the units might interact. It is clean and uncomplicated. You don't need a PhD to understand everything inside this book. It is a bit stripped back and minimalistic, but I think that's a good thing, and it gives you more than one way of playing World Eaters. Well, there is only one way to play World Eaters, and that is to charge forward, screaming blood for the blood god, skulls for the skull throne, and try and hit everything with your BT sticks as quickly as you can. But there's more than one charge forward build in here. In fact, there's two sub-factions inside of Codex World Eaters. There's the Legionary World Eaters that we're used to, that we've seen, which is the Demon Prince and Khan and those guys in rhinos, potentially with some Mauler Fiends or with some long-range backup, dacking away as you throw them at the enemy. Then there's a new build in here as well with lots of possessed in it. And by possessed, I mean special chaos possessed. They're called the Eightbound. They're a new box of models that you can get from Games Workshop. There's Exalted Eightbound and normal Eightbound, and they are Marines that are possessed by 8 demons. It's corn, lots of 8s all over this book. 8-bound possessed demons, and they can come in their own faction called Disciples of the Red Angels, where you can take them and give them obsec. 8-bound units in your army have objectives secured, and that'll be Exalted 8-bound or normal 8-bound if you bring the Disciples of the Red Angels. It means you will have 0 troops in it, because this particular sub-faction of World Eaters only allows demons. You have to take Angron, and you have to take demons. So that's a Demon Prince, Angron, 8-bound, Mauler Fiends, the Lord Invictus dude. He's the new Lord on a Juggernaut, or you can just take the Lord on a Juggernaut and then Forge Fiends and Mauler Fiends, and that's it. You've basically got about 5 or 6 unit options. If you take Disciples of the Red Angel, you have to take Angron, and that Angron must be your Warlord. And if you take the Disciples of the Red Angels faction, then you'll have 0 troops in it, just lots of demons running around, and the 8-bound will have objectives secured. Or you can take the normal World Eaters. Now, World Eaters and the Khorne Demon list, the Disciples of the Red Angels list, both of them get +1 strength and +1 attack when they're charged or heroic intervene. That's what World Eaters do. But there's something very interesting here called the Blood Tithe. And in the Blood Tithe, there are 8 things that you can spend points on, and you can spend the points on them only once. You get your Blood Tithe points by killing stuff or being killed by stuff. Every time a unit dies, be it yours or one of the enemies, you gain a Blood Tithe point. After all, Khorne cares not from whence the blood flows. So your best opponents to go up against is MSU armies, multiple small unit armies. And if someone's fighting you and they've got 30 separate units, that's really good for you, because if you kill half of them, you'll get 15 Blood Tithe points. And all the stuff that dies in your army, you'll also get a Blood Tithe point every time a unit dies. Then at the end of each phase, if a character, monster, or vehicle dies, you get an additional Blood Tithe point. It doesn't matter how many characters or vehicles die at the end of a shooting phase, you'll still get 1. And at the end of every phase, if any Titanic units were destroyed, you also get an additional Blood Tithe point. So you might get a Blood Tithe point in the movement, in the shooting phase, and in the assault phase or the psychic phase, if stuff dies in those phases. Of course, you'll also get a point for every single unit that dies. So say 3 things die in the shooting phase, and one of those is a vehicle, then in the shooting phase you'll get 3 points, plus an additional point of that phase for all the vehicles that have died. And you get these Blood Tithe points, and there's 8 things that you can spend them on, and at the end of each phase, after gaining any Blood Tithe points, you can spend them to purchase a Blessings of the Blood God. You can purchase as many of these blessings or the blood card as you wish during the battle, but you could only purchase one per phase. And these blessings confer bonuses to your army. So right at the very start, I said World Eaters get +1 strength and +1 attack on the charge. Then as the game goes on, they're going to get +1 strength and +1 attack on the charge, and 6s score additional hits for 5 blood tithe points, and Savage Guidance, add 1 to the attack's hit roll, or a 6-up shrug, or add 1 to your charge roll. So at the start of the battle, you have +1 strength and attack, and then as the battle goes on, your entire army gets +1 strength and attack, and another bonus, and another bonus, and another bonus as you spend the blood tithe points. It's clean, it's simple to remember, it applies to your whole army as they power up as more and more blood is spilt across the battle grid. I'll talk through each of them. One is a 5-up shrug to mortal wounds, one is a 6-up shrug to all wounds, one is a +1 armor penetration in melee, one is +1 to charge, one is 6s to hit in close combat. It's all melee based, nothing to do with shooting. 6s to hit, score an additional hit, or you can add 1 to the attack roll, or total carnage, unmodified hit rolls of 6 automatically wound the target, or bring Angron back. We'll get to that one in a bit. Very simply, the longer the battle goes on, the nastier and nastier and nastier World Eaters get in melee. Of course, you can spend those blood tithe points if you're playing match play, tournament play pack things. You can spend those blood tithe points on secondaries just to buy extra secondary points. I think it's 1 blood tithe point for 2 VPs and 2 blood tithe points for 4 VPs, something like that. It's in the Arcs of Omen Grand Tournament pack. It's interesting because this codex, we have to assume that this codex is being tweaked in advance of 10th edition, because we know 10th edition is coming quite soon, and it is stripped down. It is very easy to consume, and there isn't any secondaries listed for chapter approved match play anywhere in the codex itself. The only way you get your secondaries is in the Arcs of Omen book. It's not in this book. Does that mean secondaries are going when we get to 10th edition, or does that mean secondaries will be consigned only to match play, chapter approved, tournament play, pack, that way of playing, and then secondaries will come out of all the other ways of playing, which it already is. That it's already like that, to be fair, but it is stated more clearly by the fact that it isn't even in the codex. So when little Timmy picks up his new codex and has a flip through, he doesn't hit upon this page which is chapter approved secondary. What is all this about? Doesn't need to worry his little brain about that unless he wants to go running off and start doing tournaments and things. Anyway, there's 3 secondaries you can pick from. They're already in the Arcs of Omen chapter approved book, and one of them is just using blood tithe points to buy VPs. And if you're playing World Eaters, it's an easy way. You'll easily get your 15, but you won't be powering up your army as other people. Well, you will be too. You'll spend your blood tithe points to get those VPs, and you'll also be spending lesser blood tithe points as well in powering up your army. Basically, World Eaters get nastier and nastier and nastier as the game goes on. Now, the classic build, as I said, is in here in Codex World Eaters. And in Codex World Eaters, or Sub-Faction World Eaters, you can bring Angron, and you can bring all the typical World Eaters lists that we're used to seeing. In Codex World Eaters, by the way, there's only a couple of big guns. You've got a Land Raider, you've got Predators, and you've got Forge Fiends. That's it. They're the... I'm not exaggerating here. There's literally 3 units in this entire book that have a shooting range of over 24 inches. Nothing else. No Venom Crawlers, no Havocs. There is a Defiler. Actually, there's a Defiler. There's 4 units in here. There's a Defiler. But the point is, there's not a lot of long-range shooting. That's okay. That is lore accurate. In fact, way back when the World Eaters, before they turned traitor or anything, they only really liked 2 types of it. I mean, they always loved charging into battle and going absolutely ham and tearing people limb from limb. And they only really liked 2 types of vehicles. They liked the Spartans and the Land Raiders, assault tanks, to get them into close combat. And Land Raiders are in this book. And then they liked long range big guns. Anything like a skimmer or anything medium range or any light tanks or assault tanks like Secondaries, things like they didn't get on with any of that stuff. They wanted really big guns at the back, predators, stuff like that, to crack open the tin cans so that when they hit the people inside that come spilling out of the big tin cans, they can hit them with their axes and tear them apart. So the fact that there's predators in here is actually I like it. They could have added a few more units to this codex as well. So let's touch on that first. Before we get into all the praise and what's behind it, let's talk about what's missing. Obliterators are in Codex Chaos Space Marines. They're not in here, but there used to be a unit called Mutilators, which were the close combat version of Obliterators, and I would have hoped to have seen that. Because the Mutilators weren't in Codex Chaos Space Marines, I was kind of hoping to see Mutilators reborn in Codex Chaos, in Codex World Eaters. If there's any place where the Mutilators belonged, a reworked, reimagined model, it would have been in this codex, but they're not here. What is also not here is your chocolate box Chaos Lord, which is very, very confusing. There isn't any Chaos Jump Pack dude. There isn't a Smash Captain here like there is inside, like there isn't also, like it's also missing in Chaos Space Marines. There's no chocolate box Chaos Lord in here. So that means that if there are any World Eaters players out there and they have their own Lord, they have their own story behind someone who's leading their whole World Eaters faction, some Chaos Lord, there isn't actually a data sheet for you to bring him along in this codex. That's a missed opportunity, I think. It's going to upset a few people who have that character, and it's also a missed opportunity just to sell models. I mean, Games Workshop loves selling lieutenants. They love selling captains. There's so many different captains and lieutenants and Primaris models. It seemed to me like a no-brainer to introduce some sort of character other than the Lord Victorious, other than the Chaos Lord on the Juggernaut that we've all seen. Other than that new model, what about a guy on foot? What about a chocolate box guy on foot that you could give a jump pack to, or a Teeth of Terror to, or something like that to? I think they would have made bank there. I think they would have made a bit of bank if it was available in the main Chaos book as well, but it's not in here. HQ-wise, you've got Angron, you've got Khan the Betrayer, you've got Lord Invocatus, he's the dude on the Juggernaut, and then you've just got a normal dude on a Juggernaut. You've got a World Eater's Demon Prince, and then a World Eater's Master of Executions. And that's it. The most chocolatey, boxy HQ that you have here, in fact, is the Demon Prince. You can tool him up like any other Demon Prince, but the World Eater's Lord on a Juggernaut comes with a set loadout. Lord Invocatus on a Juggernaut comes with a set loadout. Khan the Betrayer comes with a set loadout. And the Master of Executions comes with a set loadout. You're only... like I said, the only variability that you have to build something truly yours is a World Eater's Demon Prince. So there's a missed opportunity here and a missed opportunity in the Chaos Space Marine book to bring a build your own Chaos Lord, build your own World Eater's Lord. But it's a small wrinkle because the book is good. One of the ways this codex is good, for example, is the way it treats Warlord traits. So we just talked about a bunch of different HQ options. The named HQ options like Lord Invocatus and Khan the Betrayer, the named ones, have their Warlord trait printed right on the page. Angron has his Warlord trait printed right on the page, the Red Angel. While you're within 6 inches of Angron, any unit with objective secured loses this ability, and I love it. I don't care how objective secured your objective secured unit is, how transhuman and no fear your Space Marines are. If Angron is coming towards you, or he's just over there, you ain't securing shit. Then there's Lord Invocatus, Road of the 8 Bloody Steps. At the start of the first battle round, before the first turn begins, you can select up to 2 friendly World Eaters core units within 9 of this Warlord. This unit and those selected units can each make a normal move at the start of the first battle round. That's after you figure out who's going first, who's going second. Say you've got first turn at the start of the first battle round, but before the first turn begins, you move this fella up on his Juggernaut. You move 2 units with him. Exalted 8-bound can move 9 or 8 or something like that, and they move up. And then the game begins, and then they move again. He will move, your Exalted 8-bound will move again, because you can make them core, not the Exalted ones, the normal 8-bound. And then all of a sudden you've got a first turn charge. You're in and amongst the lines of the enemy. I mean, Angron moves 16 inches. That means if you set up 24 inches apart from your opponent, as you must do in most games. So here I am on one side of the battle. There's Angron on the other side of the battle. He moves 16 inches, which means he's 8 inches away. 8 inches away from a first turn charge as well. Lots of opportunities for first turn charges in this book. Apart from the Warlord traits that are written on the data sheets itself, then there are 3 Warlord traits that you can take in Codex World Eaters. There is in fact only these 3 Warlord traits that you could put on your Demon Prince or Master of Executions or something like that. And there is only 3 relics. That's if you use Codex World Eaters subfaction. So that doesn't give you many options to play with, but they're fine because they're all good. For example, the Warlord traits in your command phase, you gain a blood tithe point, or True Berserker, every time you allocate damage to the Warlord, half the damage characteristics of that attack, rounding up. And remember, your HQs in this army are going forward. They're not staying at the back giving out auras. They're getting in there. And Battle Lust, heroic interventions up to 6 inches, which is really powerful for characters. And after the Warlord traits and relics, there are 8 stratagems for the World Eaters subfaction. And they're all to do with close combat, apart from Smokescreen and Icon of Wrath. Smokescreen obviously is the same as Smokescreen. Icon of Wrath is, you want to put icons on your jackals, which are the new the new troop cultist guys. They're pretty tasty for cultists, 7 points each, lots of attacks. And you can put icons on them, and you can put icons on Khorne Berserkers. And if you have an icon on your Khorne Berserkers, or if you have an icon on your jackals, then when you charge, you can roll an extra dice and discard the lowest. That's what Icon of Wrath does now. And then Smokescreen does Smokescreen. And then you've got the other 6 Warlord traits, the 6 stratagems that you can pick from. And they're all pretty good. 2 CP for Red Butchers. Pick a Terminator unit or an 8-bound unit. And then all of a sudden, that unit is doing an extra 1 damage. So all those Terminators that you have with their accursed weapons, they're all +1 strength, AP -3, 1 damage. That's what they are in the Chaos Space Marine book. That's what they are here. But they're all doing 2 damage. And all the 8-bound, their standard weapons do 2 damage. You spend 2 CP. All their standard weapons get up to 3 damage. Gory Dismemberment for 1 CP is a way of getting mortal wounds in. 6 is to hit, or 6 is to wound, cause mortal wound in addition, up to a maximum of 6. Scorn of Sorcery, a 50-50 chance to ignore a psychic test. Aggressive Intervention is very interesting. Just pick a World Eater's core unit, and it can perform a heroic intervention as if it was a character, up to 6 inches horizontally. That's your Terminators, that's your Khorne Berserkers, that's your 8-bound units, suddenly heroically intervening 6 inches. I think it's Space Wolves can do that as well. Talking about moving forward and heroic intervention, Khorne Berserkers move forward when you shoot at them now. It's called Blood Surge, and it's really cool. If any models from a Khorne Berserkers unit is destroyed in a shooting attack, then you roll a d6, and each model in the unit can be moved that d6 inches, but must finish this move as close as possible to the closest enemy unit and cannot end up in an engagement range. The thing about the Blood Surge thing, though, is it doesn't limit it to once per phase. So I blow up a Rhino and some Khorne Berserkers get out, and then I shoot at them and I kill at least 1 model, and then they surge forward d6 inches, and they're still like 11 inches away or something, and I really don't want 8, 9, 7, 6, even 2 Khorne Berserkers charging into my lines. So I shoot them again, and then they can Blood Surge forward again each time an enemy unit is selected to shoot. If any of those attacks target this unit and destroy a model, then it can make a Blood Surge move, moving forward 1d6 inches. What are you going to do? You don't I mean, you need to shoot the Khorne berserkers. But if you shoot them, they're going to come surging toward you. They have to go towards the closest enemy unit, so you can bait them with an empty rhino or an empty transport or things like that, but it's free movement across the battlefield. Anyway, in the subfaction World Eaters, which is the legionary way of building this book, there's 3 generic warlord traits, 3 generic relics, and 8 generic stratagems. And you can bring anything you want from the book. If you want to go Disciples of the Red Angel, they still get Relentless Rage, which is +1 strength and attacks whenever they charge or were charged or perform a heroic intervention. They all have that same legion trait, and they all have the blood tithe, so that that legion trait of +1 attack and +1 strength will turn into +1 attack and +1 strength and +1 AP and +1 to charge as the battle goes on, as you spend those blood tithe points. But there are restrictions. You can only include Khorne demon units and a Chaos Land Raider. In Disciples of the Red Angel, you have to bring Angron. He has to be your warlord. And there are no generic warlord traits in this part of the book. There are 3 generic relics, and they have their own stratagems, not the World Eater stratagems, but they have Disciples of the Red Angel stratagems. And instead of warlord traits, they have these things called demonic infusions, which is you can select 1 World Eater's 8-bound unit from your army and give them a boost. So drawn to power, you can select a unit of 8-bound and give them this unit counts as 2 models when each model in this unit counts as 2 models when determining control of an objective marker, for example, or mutable form. Each time a model with this ability makes a melee attack and a modified wound roll of 6 inflicts 1 mortal wound, in addition up to a maximum of 6. And Brazen Skin, each time this model in this unit would lose a wound as a result of a mortal wound on a 4+, that wound is not lost. So you're going up against Tyranids or Grey Knights or Thousand Suns, you might want to do that one. Demonic Infusions, you can give it an upgrade basically to 1 World Eater's 8-bound unit. And the 8-bound comes in units of 6. Damn it. Why 6? Why not 8? But they come in units, I guess that's because they sell 3 in a box, and you need 2 boxes to build a unit of 6 8-bound up. And then there's Exalted 8-bound, which come in units of up to 3. So, Disciples of the Red Angel. It's a subfaction within Codex World Eaters, which has just got lots of demons in it. Their own relics, their own demonic infusions with these Exalted 8-bound upgrades, and their own stratagems. And there's literally about 5 or 6 data sheets that you can pick from. The Defiler, the Land Raider, Forge Fiends, the Lords on Juggernauts, a Chaos Demon Prince, obviously. Angron has to lead it. But there's only a few units that you can bring. What do you get in return? The 8-bound units, including Exalted 8-bound, get objective secured. So if you want to run the classic World Eaters Legionary type force, you can. And you can get Angron, and you can do all the things. Basically, if you're a World Eaters player, you can run the list that you were normally running anyway. But if you want to really unlock Codex Angron, then you pick Disciples of the Red Angel. You can tell that they're really trying to push these new 8-bound, and they're really trying to push Angron. I don't blame them for it. And as Angron's here. He's a new Demon Primarch. Who wouldn't want to play with him? And the Exalted 8-bound, they're possessed, are really cool as well. So if any of you have had some experience of playing with or against possessed in Codex Chaos Space Marines, you'll know what the 8-bound do. They're pretty much like the possessed, only much more punchy. They are Strength 6, Toughness 5, 3 wounds with a 3-up save. So Toughness 5, 3 wounds, 3-up save, same as possessed. And they have a 5-up invulnerable save. So they're just as easy to kill as possessed, or as hard to kill as possessed, but they're stronger because they're Khorne, and they have more attacks. They have 4 attacks base and 5 attacks on the 8-bound champion. You got to remember that you get +1 attack and +1 strength on the charge. So a unit of just 3 of these guys, they'll have 16 attacks on the charge. Hitting on 3s with weapon skill 3, but remember there's ways to buff that with a blood tithe that gets them up to hitting on 2s. And they all came with lacerators. Eviscerators. And eviscerators are AP -3, 2 damage. And you make an additional attack with this weapon. So those are 16 attacks on 3 guys. They get up to 19 attacks on 3 guys. And you can bring 8-bound in units of up to 6, not 8, because the 8-bound thing, that's the number of demons inside of them. So a boatload of attacks, basically non-unwieldy power fists, and the sergeant comes along with a -3, 3 damage weapon. The champion comes along with a -3, 3 damage weapon, so a non-unwieldy hammer. The exalted 8-bound basically do the same thing, but they all come with 8-bound chain fists, which are strength 10 -4 power fists. Put it that way. They're tougher power fists, better power fists. So that's the main difference between 8-bound and exalted 8-bound. Exalted 8-bound, better weapons, basically. And they're 5 points more expensive. 8-bound are 40 points. Exalted 8-bounds, 45 points. They come with better weapons. But exalted 8-bounds have a 4-up invulnerable save rather than a 5-up invulnerable save. Come in units of 3 rather than units of 6. And on a 4+, so they have something called Blood Fury Aura, which is while an enemy unit is within 6 inches of this, not vehicles. Each time that unit is selected to fall back or perform an action, roll a d6 and on a 4-up, you can't fall back or you can't perform that action. 8-bound do some, exalted 8-bound do some more shenanigans. They hit better. They can deep strike in as well. They have the warp strike keyword, whereas 8-bound don't have the warp strike keyword. So for 5 points more attacks, deep striking in, and a 4-up invulnerable save. They're like more expensive possessed, basically, and they look super, super cool. The reason for bringing Disciples of the Red Angel subfaction would be to give these guys objective secured. You can bring Exalted 8-bound and 8-bound in the normal World Eater stuff. You can do whatever you want in the normal World Eater stuff. In fact, the only real reason for bringing Disciples of the Red Angel is to give these guys objective secured and run them across the battlefield, and they'll be absolutely terrifying. Other units in this book, we talked about the Jackals. They're cultists with lots of attacks. World Eaters Terminator Squad, they're the same as Chaos Space Marine Terminators, only with more attacks. They come with 4 attacks as standard, and remember, that's 5 attacks on the charge. If you give them a dual pair of accursed weapons, say they've got a claw each, you're looking at 7 attacks on the charge. That's the Terminators. There's also a Hellbrute, Chaos Spawn, Chaos Land Raider, Defiler, Chaos Predator Squadron, and yes, the Land Raider is toughness 9, and yes, the Predator is toughness 8. Forge Fiend, Mauler Fiend, Chaos Rhinos, and of course the Helldrake and the big chonky corn Lord of Skulls with 30 wounds and a 2-up save at toughness 8. Then you know they did the book right when you find out that their crusade rules are after all the shenanigans. Not before all the shenanigans and you have to flip past them every single time. They're after all the shenanigans. The nasty corn Lord of Skulls is 575 points. I've always thought he looked a bit derpy, but he's an absolute beatstick which will kill lots and lots of things. The Hades Gatling Cannon is just a heavy 12 now, strength 8 -3, 2 damage. The Gore Storm Cannon is a heavy 3d3, strength 9 -2, 3 damage, blast. Say the Corn Lord of Skulls for 575 points, a bit derpy, an absolute beat stick, something that you want the opponent to shoot at and pour lots and lots of firepower into, but he's not the Lord of War that we're here for, is he? The Lord of War that we're here for is Angron, the Red Angel, who comes in at a measly 360 points. He's toughness 7 with a 2-up save and a 4-up invulnerable save with 18 wounds. So, potentially, he can be one-shotted. If you go second at toughness 7 with a 4-up invulnerable save and 18 wounds, you can put enough fire. If you have enough firepower opposite the table to take a knight out in one, an Imperial Knight or Chaos Knight out in one turn of shooting, potentially you could one-shot Angron. But when he gets knocked down, he gets up again. How does he get back up again? Well, I told you about those blood tithe points earlier on. There's for 6 blood tithe points, you can bring Angron back once. Like I said, you can only use these blood tithe points once, and you can only ever use them once per phase, with the exception of Reborn in Blood. When you play Reborn in Blood, you can also play another blood tithe upgrade at the same time. Reborn in Blood for 6 blood tithe points. So here you are, your turn 1. You've got your new model, which is Angron, and he's painted up and you put him down on your table, and he gets one shot in turn 1, or maybe in turn 2. You jump him forward in turn 1. He's just in front of the enemy lines. He takes some firepower in turn 1, and just before you get him into assault in turn 2, because you went second, he gets taken out. There goes your 360-point model. Sad panda. Well, when you get 6 blood tithe points, you could just drop him back in turn 4. Place a destroyed Angron model from your army into blasphemous reserves. Why is it called blasphemous reserves? Why can't it just be reserves? Why does it have to be warp strike? Why can't it just be deep strike? Why can't the names be the same to protect the innocent? With 8 wounds remaining. So you drop him back in with 8 runes remaining. He's no longer considered to be destroyed and can be set up again in your reinforcement step if it has the warp strike ability, and it does have the warp strike ability. Why does it say as if it had the warp strike ability when above it says it has the warp strike? Basically, your Angron gets shot in turn 1 or turn 2, and in turn 3 or 4, you can put him back in and deep strike him back on the battlefield with 8 wounds remaining. And that isn't even his lowest bracket. His lowest bracket is 1 to 5 wounds. At 8 wounds, he's still got 10 attacks and moves 12. So you drop him down and he's back again. This will happen every single game. This is why 360 points seemed a little bit cheap to me, considering that everyone is always going to bring him back. Angron is going to die. Angron is going to die in turn 1 or turn 2 in almost every battle, because or you're going to just let him rampage. A canny opponent might feed Angron a rhino or a cheap unit here or a cheap unit there once per turn, just to keep him happy and keep him out of the way, and might not shoot him. Because if you do manage to kill Angron, as soon as the Khorne player has 6 blood tithe points, he's going to deep strike him back on the table. And that means that he could appear right in the other corner of the table, or right where he needs to be. It would still be a 9-inch charge, because he'll drop in reserve. But remember, there's blood tithe points to spend, which gives you +1 to charge. So he could drop back in turn 4 and have an 8-inch charge and win the game for the world. It's absolutely glorious. It's glorious. Toughness 7 with the top save 4 up and Van is. So he can die, but then he drops back in again. Now, his 12 attacks on top profile. Hit at strength 14, -4, D3 +3 damage. That's pretty good, but you're only ever gonna do that if you want to take out a knight or a land raider or something like that, because he's always hitting on 2s, no matter how degraded he is. As he drops down, as he gets weaker, he loses mobility and attacks only. Everything else stays the same. So at 12 attacks, 10 attacks, 8 attacks at strength 14, -4, D3 +3 damage, he can one-shot a knight or one-shot a land raider or do something like that. But you're going to use his other attack, which is bloodletting sweep. Strength user, which is strength 9, strength 10 on the charge, -3, 1 damage. And each time an attack is made with this weapon profile, make 3 hit rolls instead of 1. So on the charge, he's strength 10 with 13 attacks, because he's a World Eater model, so he gets another extra attack on the charge. 13 times 3, yeah. He's got 39 attacks on the charge at strength 10, -3, 1 damage, hitting on 2s. And you can spend strats on him so that 6 is to hit, auto wound, or 6 is to hit, explode. Blood tithe points on him for things like that. Sorry, not strats, blood tithe thing. He's an absolute monster. Now, let's face it, this is Angron. Angron should be the scariest thing in 40k in close combat. It is Angron, Demon Primarch Angron, chosen of Khorne himself, Angron, the Red Angel. And they have made him the scariest thing in close combat in Warhammer 40k, and I applaud them for that. You should want to you don't want Angron to touch anything in your army. You don't want him to attack your Land Raider, you don't want him to attack your Titan, you don't want him to attack your Imperial Knight, you don't want him to attack that line of 9 aggressors or whatever, or 10. He will kill, murder, death, kill everything he touches. And in fact, the best thing for Angron to do, hitting everything with those strength 10 -3 1 damage attacks, if he goes into a unit of 10 Terminators or a full unit of Blade Guard veterans, the best thing for him to do is to kill everything but one in that unit. Because his Warlord trait is, while an enemy, he wants to kill everything but one in that unit, because he has an ability called Wrathful Presence, which is in his command phase. You can select one of the abilities and it applies until the start of your next turn. And one of these abilities is Righteous Slaughter. While a unit is within 6 inches of the model, it cannot fall back. So you go throwing in against some Terminators, go throwing in against some Blade Guard veterans, go throw him against that unkillable horde, and he will kill it. And if he doesn't kill it, he'll be locked up with it. That unit won't be able to fall back in your turn because Righteous Slaughter, all units within 6 inches can't fall back. And then he'll kill it in the opponent's turn, because he'll have killed 90% of it in his own turn, the remaining 10% in your turn, and then in his turn again, he'll be free to rampage off and do something. He has Infectious Raid as well. While a friendly World Eater's core unit within 6 inches of the model, they add one. So you pick one of these three things for Wrathful Presence in his command phase. One is you can't fall back. One is everyone within 6 inches, every core unit within 6 inches, add one to attacks. And one is, while another friendly World Eater's unit is within 6, each time a model in that unit makes a melee attack, reroll hit rolls of 1. He's also got his normal Lord of the Arena. He's also got the normal Chapter Master type presence, which is he picks a core unit or a character and then they can reroll attacks. He could do it to himself. He could, with his 39 attacks, he can tell himself, because he's a World Eater's character, to reroll all hits, just like Mortarion tells himself to reroll all hits. Or he can point at another core unit within, or a core unit within 6 inches of him and say, you reroll all the hits. Like I said, Wrathful Presence is also this chocolate box. There's 3 little things he can do. Do you want to give the units around him an extra attack? Do you want to give the units around him reroll hit rolls of 1? Or my personal favorite, which is you just can't fall back when you're in close combat with Angron. And with his Warlord trait, he turns off OBSEC as well. He's a beast. He's a monster. He should be. The model looks absolutely gorgeous, in my opinion. His rules feel very Angron-y, in my opinion. And I like the fact that he comes back in. In the new Arcs of Omen lore, Angron, he keeps coming back. He is a supernova burning bright. And in that lore, when he gets knocked down, he gets up again. You can never keep him down. He gets knocked down. He gets up again. You can never keep him down. Chumbawamba. That thing. You know, he just keeps coming and coming and coming. If he wants to kill you, you are going to die. Okay, so like I said, there's 2 real lists in this book. There is the World Eater Standard Legionary list, and then there's the Angron 8-bound list. And in the Disciples of the Red Angel, the Angron 8-bound list, they have their own 8 stratagems. And 3 of the stratagems are to do with movement, getting closer to the enemy and slaughtering them. For example, Blood Scent. If an enemy unit falls back, then you can immediately consolidate an 8-bound unit. And that 8-bound unit, instead of consolidating 3 inches, moves 6 inches. So you're locked up in combat with this 8-bound unit, and then the tank falls back, or the skimmer moves out of the way, or whatever, gets out of there. So I don't know how it's still alive after being in close combat with an 8-bound unit, but let's assume something is powerful enough to still be alive after getting hit by some 8-bound, and they fall back out of combat. Well, then you can move that 8-bound unit 6 inches, which is very nice. Furious Surge. Use a stratagem in your opponent's shooting phase. After an enemy unit's finished making its attacks, the 8-bound unit can now make a normal move as if it were your movement phase, and 8-bound units move 9. So just like that Blood Surge movement for the Khorne Berserkers, you can also, for 1 CP, Furious Surge and move your 8-bound 9 inches forward. Obviously, always forward. There's another one. Apoplectic Frenzy for 1 CP. When a World Eater's unit from your army, any World Eater's unit from your army, is selected to advance, don't roll a dice, just move 6. I like that. You could stick that on Angron as well. He just moves an extra 6. There's also bloodthirsty determination when you go charging in a World Eaters unit. You can ignore any or all modifiers to charge rolls made for that unit. So Tangle Thorn grenades, those things that, what are they called? The Custodies put down that grenade, which means you only charge, you lose d6 on your charge. Or you've got repulsor impact fields, which are -2 to charge, or the Tau one, which is -2 to charge, or terrain that you jump over, -2 to charge. For 1 CP, bloodthirsty determination, ignore all that shit. Just charge in the distance that you charge in. And you might have +1 to charge because you've spent that on the blood tithe point. So there's 8 different stratagems that you can play if you're going Disciples of the Red Angel. And the only reason why that you bring Disciples of the Red Angel is to play with lots of objective secured 8-bound, or to unlock stratagems that are different from the standard World Eater stratagems. So the World Eater subfaction are like, here are the World Eaters that are still hanging on, a bit like Talos and the Night Lords in that ADB trilogy, in the Night Lords trilogy. And if there's anyone out there who's any Chaos fan at all, then you have to read Aaron Dembski-Bowden's Night Lords trilogy. It's absolutely fantastic. Even if you're an Imperial player, read that, because the Night Lords' #1 enemy throughout most of the book is other Chaos. So if you're an Imperial player at heart like myself, then you get to see Chaos killing other Chaos, and that will make you a very happy puppy. Read that book. The World Eaters, standard subfaction in this book, are like Talos in the Night Lords book. They still have a modicum of their sanity. They're still moving around the galaxy like World Eaters. World Eaters themselves in the lore, they're very divided. They're very fractured. They're in lots of different war bands all over the place. And some have joined Abaddon's crusade. Some have gone here. Some have gone there. Some have gone completely insane. And some of them have gone a bit demony, it would seem, in this new book, and have become the Disciples of the Red Angel. Basically, the Disciples of the Red Angel are demon-infested, once World Eaters that plunge into so much threat and violence and blood that it draws the eye of the Red Angel every single time. And that was a surprise. I didn't expect there to be a subfaction in this book. And normally I rally against over-complex rules and too many subfactions and blah, blah, blah. But because both subfactions function in exactly the same way, +1 attack and +1 strength, and they both have access to the blood tithe. The only thing that's different is one side gets different stratagems and different things, and the other side gets different stratagems and 8-bound dudes as objective secured. It's simple. Why can't it always be this simple? Like I said, there are a few units in here that you can find in the Chaos Space Marine book, such as Hellbrute, Helldrake, Forge Fiends, Mauler Fiends, Defiler, Rhino, Land Raider. I think that's it. They are the same as they are in the Chaos Space Marine book, only with an extra attack each because, you know, Khorne loves it. And that's pretty much it for the Codex. It's not complicated. It's clean. It's easy to understand. There aren't very many layers of playing World Eaters, but there never was very many layers of playing World Eaters. It was Rhino Rush, get forward, clobber people with big sticks. At least they've added some variety here with the 8-bound, with Jackals hanging back on objectives, or in swarms of 20. You can get those cultists up to swarms of 20, and they do have a lot of attacks, and you can throw them in, and they do have core and World Eaters, so they can benefit from those stratagems as well. There's the same restrictions that you'll find in the Thousand Suns, in the Death Guard, in the Chaos Space Marine book, such as only 1 Demon Prince per detachment. You can bring 2 detachments, 2 Demon Princes that way. Also Mere Mortals. The Mere Mortals rule is you can't have more cultists than Astartes units in here. These standard restrictions that we're used to seeing in these codexes now, making sure that your army actually looks like a World Eater's army and not completely broken, or not completely, well, doesn't look like something that isn't a World Eater's army. Obviously, some people will hate this book because some people don't want to run forward and hit things with big sticks. Some people play Tau and like hiding in the corner. Or some people like magic and throwing magic and doing fortune guide and having things called wave spinners and singing spear. Some people like bringing Justin Bieber to the battlefield and singing with their spears. Some people don't know what blood is, what maim, burn, death, kill is. But the people who do like running forward and hitting things with a big stick are going to love this book because, as I said, simple and a couple of different builds in there, a couple of different ways to play the, well, it's the same way of playing, but a couple of different builds to it. And it's got Angron in it. It's got a demon Primarch in it who's absolutely terrifying with 39 attacks on the charge when he's fully pimped. And you can one-shot Mortarion. You can one-shot Magnus the Red. You can even one-shot Angron. But the difference is this demon Primarch comes back. And that is just terrifying. Anyway, I hope you made head or tail of what I was saying here. The main thing is, if you're interested in World Eaters, you're going to like this book. It has got a couple of bits that are missing. Like I said, I would have liked to have seen Mutilators in it. I would have liked to have seen a Chaos Lord in it. I think there's also a missed opportunity to bring... So Death Guard have lots of their own unique tanks and things. There could have been a Khorne crab-like engine in here. The models that we've seen from Games Workshop, the new ones such as the Jackals and the Lord on Juggernaut and the new Eightbound, the new Khorne Berserkers and the new Angron, those are the only new models that are available. There is no World Eaters vehicle, World Eaters demon engine in this book, and there could be. There's a couple of Forge World ones, so they could have introduced some kind of crab tank, some kind of stalk tank, some kind of angry demon infused type corny World Eater. And in the pack, there could have been two different ways to build him, such as Corny World Eater Crab Tank number 1, Crawley World Eater Stabby Crab Tank number 2, and one is Stabby and one is Stabby and Shooty. That could have been in here as well, and they would have made bank on that, just as they would have made bank if there'd have been a chocolate box Chaos Lord. So there's a couple of missed opportunities here to make even more money, and World Eaters players would have lapped it up. And assuming that this codex is successful, I imagine that we'll see them come round in Codex 2.0 when they expand upon this faction in the future. I'm going to assume it's going to be successful because there's Angron in it. Did I mention Angron? There's no psychic powers to worry about. Khorne doesn't like magic. There's no litanies because Khorne doesn't like any of that sort of thing as well. There's no turn-by-turn mechanic, which just annoys the crap out of people as things are changing as the game goes on. There are no gotcha moments because when you spend those blood tithe points and your army gets a bit better, you tell your opponent, oh, by the way, my army can do this now. Oh, by the way, my army can do this now. So your army, as it should get weaker, as it loses more and more units, the remaining units actually power up. And yeah, it's just in your face. I like it. I think I've rabbited on. Thank you for listening to this review. If you'd like to support me, then consider becoming a channel member. That really helps me out. Keeps the lights on, pays for the donuts, things like that. Happy wargaming.